Good day, grade 9 students. Ang lesson natin ngayon ay Introduction of Quadratic Function. So, dito sa introduction ng quadratic function, malalaman natin yung mga iba't ibang klase na magre-represents ng quadratic functions. So, umpisahan natin sa uh, real-life models that represents quadratic functions. Ano ba yung mga real-life models na yan? Yan po yung mga parabolic figures. Okay? So, let's start. Ano-ano ba yung mga models na yan? So, ito yung unang model. This is what we call the Sydney Harbor Parabolic Bridge. The parabola opens downward. So, this is a representation of quadratic function. So, this is where quadratic function applied in this bridge. Next is the San Francisco Bay Bridge. The parabola opens upward. So, this is another representation of quadratic function. So, wherein the quadratic function is applied to this bridge also. But in this case, it is the parabola opens upward. Okay? Okay, in this third picture, you have here fountain. So, the water forms a parabolic shape that opens downward. Next picture is this uh, architectural design. So it is also a parabola opens downward. So this represents a quadratic function. And this one, you have here opens upward and opens downward, a combination of the two, a roller coaster. So it represents also a quadratic function. Opens upward and opens downward. A roller coaster has it both. And for this, it's very familiar to us, the McDonald's, the letter M. So it has two parabolic shape that opens the parabolic shape opens downward. Okay, so this represents the quadratic function. Okay, let's proceed to equations. So we're done with real-life models. So we will have equations that represent quadratic function. Okay, so here we have a table, quadratic equation and quadratic function. We will differentiate the two. So in quadratic equation, we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. An example of that is 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Wherein a, b, c are real numbers and a should not be equal to 0. Okay, so we already know this previously. So what about with quadratic function? So sa quadratic function, naging two variables na siya. Wherein sa quadratic equation, one variable. So dito sa quadratic function, y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. An example of that is y is equal to x squared minus 5x plus 6. So you have here the variable x and the variable y. So we are dealing with two variables, wherein a, b, c are real numbers, the same with quadratic equation. And a, it should not be equal to 0. So what is the difference between quadratic function and quadratic equation? Quadratic equation is a one variable equation dealing with one variable. Quadratic function, it deals with two variables, the x and y. By the way, x and y can be replaced. Pwede yung mapalitan by any letters from A to Z. Okay. Pero mapapansin nyo dyan, sasabihin nyo, X and Y meron pang letter A, letter B, letter C. So, 5 variables na. Yung A, B, C nyo dyan represented by real numbers. If you are already dealing with quadratic function. So, magiging 2 variables na lang yan. Okay? So, wag kayong malito na meron pang A, B, C. So, A, B, C are real numbers. Okay. So, let's have different equations. Okay, so in these 10 different equations, we will identify whether it is quadratic or not. So for number 1, we have y is equal to x squared plus 2. Is it quadratic or not? We will justify our answer. So for number 1, it is a yes. Why? Because you have here x squared. So your degree there is 2. So it is a quadratic function. So justification, it is in the second degree. Okay, for number 2, we have y is equal to 2x minus 10. So it is no, it's not a quadratic function. Why? Because it is only a linear function. Why linear? Because you have here 2x. The exponent is just 1, imaginary 1. So it is in the first degree only. Okay, for number 3, you have y equals 9 minus 2x squared. So this is a yes because of the second degree. So your second degree here is negative 2x squared. So your squared here is your second degree. Okay, for number 4, it's no because of the variable exponent. So the variable should not be the exponent if you are dealing with quadratic function. So kapag naging exponent na yung variable, it is not quadratic function already. Okay? So 2 raised to the power of x is not a quadratic function. Okay? Number 5, it's no. Why no? Because of the third degree. So this is your x cubed. It is already in the third degree. Although you have 3x squared, nasa second degree ito. Pero mas mataas yung degree niya dito sa x cubed. So it is already in the third degree. So kapag lumampas ka na sa second degree, hindi na siya quadratic function. Okay, so number 6, y is equal to 2 raised to x plus 3x plus 2. So this is no. Same with number 4, variable exponent. Okay, for number 7, you have y is equal to 2x squared. So this is yes, because it is in second degree. Okay, this x squared in second degree. For number 8, this is yes. Y is equal to the product of x minus 2 times x plus 4. So if you're going to FOIL this, two binomials, makaka-form ka po ng quadratic equation. Magkakaroon ka ng second degree. Okay, ang answer po kasi sa product ng x minus 2 times x plus 4 ay x squared plus 2x minus 8. So, y is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 8. So, makaka-form ka po ng quadratic trinomial. So, y is equal to quadratic trinomial. So, it is already in the second degree. So, it is a quadratic function. Number 9. In number 9, if you're going to multiply this sum and difference of two binomials, so you have x times x, x squared, negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9. So, this is x squared uh, minus 9 plus x squared. So, you have 2x squared. So, it is still in the second degree. And then, this is your y. If you're going to transfer this at the right side, magiging y equals. Hindi na siya negative y. Left side pala. So, negative y transfer to the left side. It becomes positive y. Okay, so this is yes. It is in the second degree. For the 10th equation, you have 3x cubed plus y minus 2x equals 0. So this is a no because of the third degree. Okay? So you have 3x cubed here and it is in the third degree. graphs that represent quadratic functions. Ano-ano man yung mga graphs na nagre-represent ng quadratic function? Okay, so identify if the graph represents quadratic function. So the first graph represents quadratic function. It is a quadratic function. It is a parabola opens downward. For the second one, it is also a quadratic function because it represents a parabola opens upward. Okay, for the third one, it is not because it is a linear function. By the way, the parabola should have arrowheads. So in the first one, it should have arrow here. You have their arrow. Opens downward. Okay? So for the third one, this is not a quadratic function because it is a linear function. This is a first degree. I think when you were grade 8, you have this kind of graph. Okay? Okay, let's proceed to situations that represent quadratic functions. Ano-ano yung mga situations na mag-represent ng quadratic function? So, sa pagbabasa natin ng isang problem, alam natin if it is quadratic function or not. So, dito, which of the following situations represent a quadratic function? So, here, in number 1, the area A of a room with length 3 meters more than the width. So, you have length and width. And we already solved problems about area in quadratic equation. So, this can represent a quadratic function also, wherein your first variable is A, and your second variable is the trinomial that can be represented by any letter. So, if you deal with area, it is always represents quadratic function. Palagi nagre-represent yung area ng quadratic function. Okay. So, number 1, it represents quadratic function. Number 2, the price P of a meat per number of kilograms N at 220 per kilo. So, ibig sabihin dito, pwede tayo maka-form ng equation dito. So, P is equal to 220 N, where N is the number of kilos. So, kung 2 kilo ang binili mo, 220 times 2. So, you have 440 ang babayaran mong price. Kung 3 kilo ang bibilin mo, so 220 N, yung N papalitan mo ng 3, so 220 times 3, so you have 660. So, this is just a linear function lang po siya. First degree lang yung N mo eh. Ang equation mo dito ulitin ko po yung equation, P is equal to 220 N, letter N. Wala siyang N squared. So, kung first degree lang, this is just a linear. So, number 2, it's not a quadratic function. Number 3, the maximum area of garden that can be fenced using 300 meters of fencing materials. So, nakapag-solve na rin tayo ng mga ganitong problem about fencing materials, and it deals with quadratic equation. So, it also represents quadratic function. Now, number 3, quadratic function. Number 4, a shot put throw can be modeled using the equation y is equal to negative 0.0241 x squared plus x plus 5.5, where x is the distance traveled and y is the height. Okay, so it is obvious. You have here second degree. There, in the first term of the trinomial. So, this is quadratic function. You have here y and x. So, it involves two variables. Okay, number 5. The maximum height a ball can reach when launched upward from a platform of height h modeled by the equation h is equal to negative 16t squared plus vt plus h. So, ang v nyo dyan ay velocity. Okay? Or speed. So, represent yan ng quadratic function. Bakit? Ayun, no, second degree, kitang-kita na. And this h represents your y. Y and your x is represented by t. Okay? So, x and y can be replaced by any letter. As long as you have the second degree, magre-represent na yan ng quadratic function. Okay, so that's all for the introduction of quadratic functions. We know now the different real-life models that represents quadratic function, equations that represents quadratic function, graphs that represent quadratic functions, and situations that represent quadratic functions. So we have 4. Okay, that's all. Watch this video and you can ask me by stating your questions below the comment section. Okay? In the comment sections rather. So may comment section naman tayo dito. So I'll post this in our Google Classroom. Bye!